What should we eat for lunch today, buddy? The... Hi! Don't judge! It's lonely in this period of lockdown and I have to improvise something. Anyway, today I'm here with my friend Lawrence, who will be the assistant for this lesson. And today we'll be covering a much anticipated subject, drawing of the human head. Now, the human head is one of the most difficult things to get right. And I would say it's more difficult than drawing a building, a vehicle, and even animals. And the main reason is because we are so used to looking at other people. Maybe not in this current situation, but the amount of exposure we have to other human beings on a regular basis is very high. And because of that, our eyes are trained to be able to scrutinize the human face, and if the drawing is just a little bit off, you can tell. And therefore, it makes the task of drawing a convincing human face very intricate. Without further ado, let's move on to the lesson. Oh, sorry. When it comes to drawing the human face, the most important thing you need to learn is proportion. The first proportion to note is that the front side of the human head is 5 eyes wide. Next, the distance between 2 eyes are exactly 1 eye length. So is the width of the nose. Third, the ends of the lip roughly line up to the midpoint of the eyeball. The length of the ear is equivalent to the distance from the brow line to the nose. The head can be divided into thirds from the hairline to the jawline. The first third extends from the hairline to the brow line. The second third extends from the brow line to the nose. And the last third extends from the nose to the jawline. And lastly, the length of the head is equivalent to the width of the head. These are the summarized points compiled conveniently into a cheat sheet. Now you should try to memorize these basic 6 points, as it will help you tremendously when it comes to drawing the human head and designing your own characters in the future. Alright, the first thing to remember when drawing eyes is that you have to take note that there is a spherical form of the eyeball underneath those eyelids. And you have to represent that form in your drawing. Otherwise, the eyes that you draw would look extremely flat. The second thing to note is to avoid drawing a symmetrical looking eye. If you observe, the eye is asymmetrical. It tends to taper towards the end near the nose. The third point to remember when drawing the eyes is that the eye is wrapping around a cylindrical surface that is the face. So over here I am redrawing the same pair of eyes. In the top example, it is on a curved surface, which is what you should be doing. In the bottom example, the eyes are placed on a flat piece of plane, and that's something that you should avoid. Alright, next up we have the ear. The ear is a fairly abstract looking shape, and to be honest, if you screw up drawing the ear, unless you really do it very badly, no one would know. But as a rule of thumb, you can start off with a hook shape first, or prefer to associate that to a number 9 shape. And once that is drawn, you can insert in a Y that connects the top part of the ear to the bottom part. And to round it off, create a bump on the opening side of the ear. And there you have it. Simple way of drawing the ear. For the nose, I usually start off by drawing the glabella first. That's the area between the eyebrows. I usually simplify it to a trapezium shape, and it funnels into the nose ridge before funneling out to where the ball of the nose is. Take note, when drawing the nose, the meaty part where we call the ball of the nose is a spherical shape. Try to avoid drawing it too flatly. To the left of this drawing, I further simplify the deconstructed view of the nose to just 2 trapezium. To the right, I am drawing the 3/4 view of the nose. Note how the other nostril recedes into space in perspective. For the lips, remember these 2 alphabets, M and U. You can draw the upper lip to look like a compressed M shape. The lower lip can be simplified to a compressed U shape. Just like the eyeballs, try to avoid drawing a flat looking lip. Remember that the front of the human head is a curved cylinder, and therefore the lips should be wrapping around this curved surface. This would mean that the other side of the lip that is curving around the other side should have a shorter length compared to the side that is facing the viewer. When drawing female lips, try to make them look a little bit thicker. The male lip can be a bit more pursed. Take note that there are a total of 5 different masses that are within the lip. 3 on the upper lip and 2 on the lower lip. Next up, we will attempt to deconstruct the entire head. We are following the model that is drawn by Andrew Loomis. Drawing the head is no easy feat, as it combines everything that we have learned thus far. I would usually start with a circle and a half-cut cylinder that extends from the base of the circle. This will form the initial skull-like shape of the head. Next, I would identify the brow line, and I'll note in the area where the glabella should be.
Once that is identified, I can draw in the area where the eye sockets are. At this stage, the eye socket might look like a sunglass. Next, I'll proceed to fill in the nose using the deconstruction method that we have discussed earlier. I'm following the 1/3 breakdown of the head proportion to identify the length of the nose. Once the nose is drawn, I can proceed to draw in the lip. With both the brow line and the nose line identified, I can extend the guideline all the way to the back and fill in the ear. The second head is slightly more tricky. The person in the reference image is looking downwards, and because of perspective, the proportions of the face are slightly altered. Her forehead occupies a bigger amount of space, and her lip area occupies a smaller amount of space. The resulting image will look a little bit more compressed than usual. However, using the same methods of deconstruction, we can still draw the basic form of this head, be able to identify where the ears are supposed to be located, even though you can't really see the ears in the photo because of her hair. A side view for this particular example, the very same process. I will start with a sphere and a cut up cylinder to denote the front of the face. The sphere is the back of the head. Then I will identify the area that the glabella is supposed to be, and I'll block in the nose and the eye socket. At this stage, the eye socket looks kind of like a pair of sunglasses. With that in, I will block in the lip, and finally the jaw line. One thing I forgot to note is that the ear is located somewhere in the middle of the face when you look at it from the side view. So for this example, I plant in a line in the middle of the head and I locate the ear from there. Alright, the last deconstruction example. In this case, the reference model is looking upwards. This is the opposite of the second example that we did. More space should be allocated for the lower 1/3 of the face, which is from the nose to the jawline. Conversely, the area allocated for the forehead and from the brow line to the nose line is compressed because of perspective. As with always, I locate the glabella first and then the eye socket, and then I add in the nose and finally the lips. Once again, make sure that the lip and the nose and the eyes are curving around the front of the face. Remember that the front of the face is a curved surface and everything should flow accordingly. Okay, after watching my process, it's time for you guys to get your hands dirty and try out this head deconstruction method. I have with me 4 images, 2 of them based off sculptures and 2 of them based off drawings by other artists. Attempt to deconstruct all 4 heads based on the reference provided. You may continue with the video once you have done so. For your homework today, you'll be required to draw 2 portraits, and these 2 portraits will be referenced from 1 drawing and 1 sculpture bust. I will provide the pool of images in the description box below, so take a look, find the image that appeals to you the most and draw based on that reference image. But I thought I would do a demo or 2 for how I would approach this assignment. For this, I try to be a little bit more accurate, so I start by doing a grid, by overlaying a grid above my reference image. For you, since you are most likely using a traditional media for this particular job sheet, I would advise that you can either import the images, the reference images, into Photoshop and do the same, or you can apply the grid in your phone image editing application. So my process is very similar at this stage to the deconstruction that we have done earlier. I'll first do a very quick deconstruction of the face. Locating where all these individual elements should be placed on the face. At this stage, I am ignoring the hair and the facial hair, and I am also ignoring the glasses at this point in time. When I'm drawing, I am constantly observing my reference image, making sure that the proportion of each element is accurate, and making sure that the placement of each body part is accurate to the grid that I'm using. For this particular job sheet, I urge you not to do any form of shading. For now, we are just practicing how to draw the human head. We will cover shading in weeks to come. This drawing is done by Proco. He is quite the prolific artist, especially on YouTube. His video tutorials are really excellent if you are a beginner, and if you are especially interested in human anatomy, I would highly recommend you to visit his videos and subscribe to his channel. I can't really see much of the details for the ear, so I'm just planting in the information I know. Okay, with the basic deconstruction done, I will zoom in and start to do a little bit more detail. If you are using the traditional media, this is the point of time where I would actually switch from the overhand grip to the tripod grip to insert more details. When drawing with the traditional medium, try to keep the lines to be light during the deconstruction phase, so that it makes cleaning up a little bit easier later on. Right now I'm ready to block in the glasses. And that would be my recommended workflow. If the reference has any, or the character that you're drawing has any form of accessory, it's typically best to first deconstruct the naked face, if that makes sense. Drop any sort of facial hair, glasses, accessories, and really nail down the underlying form before you move on to add stuff on top. doing some minor fixes on the lips, making sure that it is as close to the reference as possible. At this stage, I am not expecting you guys to achieve kind of a photo likeness, and I think that's not really the point for this particular job sheet anyways. The idea is to develop your confidence in drawing the human face, the human head, and to construct something that, you know, remotely looks like a human. Some artists will frown at drawing using another artist's drawing as a reference. Personally, I think that this approach is a great way to learn, especially for beginners. Because if you start with a photo reference, sometimes it might be too daunting. There's just too many details for beginners to look out for. That it can be a very scary task to embark on. So I think starting off practicing with drawings based on other people's drawings and sculptures, I think these are the two best ways to learn how to draw the human head. But next lesson we will move on to photo reference. So if you have difficulty doing something like this, I will urge you to do more than just two. If this is your first time doing a human portrait, try to spend a little bit more time, make sure that the details are right, make sure that the proportion, the placement is accurate. Don't rush this assignment. For the next demo, I am using a reference image of a Bernini sculpture, one of my favorite Baroque sculptor. Okay, first I start off by drawing a grid to help me with the proportion and placement of the different parts of the face. Of course, the main focus for this particular job sheet is the reference head, but I will just draw in the neck and shoulders so that it's not just a creepy floating head. This sculpture has a more complicated hair as compared to the drawing that we did previously, and maybe I'll take this opportunity to highlight some tips for drawing hair. But first, the same process that I've done throughout this video. Start off by deconstructing the head. Remember the proportion cheat sheet. The lips should end somewhere at the midpoint of the eyes. Currently using that measurement. Okay, once I'm generally happy with the proportions and placement, I can then zoom in and try to add a little bit more details. So for the hair, my tip is to try to simplify the form once again. Try to clump different strands of hair to combine them into one bigger clump, and try to draw this one clump as a group instead of individual strands. Not only would this make the drawing process simpler, it will also help you eventually when you move on to shading the hair and coloring the hair. When I draw, I like to indicate shadow shapes. So what this means is that the lines where the shadow will kind of end, if that makes sense. So for example, if you look at the brow area, I marked out an area over there with outlines. This is what I call the shadow shape. This is just something out of habit, since I do a lot of painting as well. This is how I would indicate for later on if should I decide to paint this. I know where to put in the different values. You can see how over here I am trying to clump the hair together. For this particular example, it's still not too bad because Bernini has already done most of the job for us, clumping up the hair. And once again, that's why I would encourage new learners to kind of do studies like this based on sculptures and drawings. Personally, I prefer to do it based on sculptures rather than drawings. But I do see a value in learning from other people's drawings as well, as long as you find good reference. Right, at this point, I am just adding a little bit of details on the clothing, but as I mentioned earlier, the focus should be on the head. Okay, I think generally speaking, I am quite okay with this. The last step I would do is to just clean up the lines, insert a little bit of line weight to make this drawing really pop. And I would really encourage you guys to spend a little bit more time to polish your drawings like this, because just adding a little bit of time to work on your drawings would really improve it, in my opinion, and set it apart from your peers. To summarize today's lesson, we learned about the general proportion of the human head. We also learned how to deconstruct
the individual components ranging from the eyes, the ears, the nose, and the lips. And of course, we deconstructed the whole head as well. For your homework today, you are required to do 2 studies of the human head. One from a reference of another artist's drawing, and the other from a photo of a sculpture bust. But, and no offense to you, Lawrence, we wouldn't want to continue drawing based on other people's drawings or sculpture busts. Eventually we want to move on to drawing from real life photos, right? Don't worry about that, we will cover that in our next video. For now, enjoy the process of learning how to draw the human head, and I'll see you next video.